Jim is a game designer, and he's going to tell us everything there is to know and needs to be known about gaming and gamification. Please welcome Jim Babb.
So before we get started, I wanted to do a little bit of an exercise, a little bit of a game where we all play pretend together, and we make believe and use our imaginations. Okay, so this is really this is risky, and you really have to believe with me here for a second. So imagine you're in a hotel. Okay. Okay, good. We're all there. And this is a little bit of my experience at the hotel so far. So I'm in my room and I'm lounging in my nice robe, and I discover something curious in the corner, something down there, and I dive in and I look at it, and peeking through this vent I see something strange. Now I can't get the vent open. It's screwed in, but luckily, the hotel's been nice enough to give me a screwdriver. So there I am, down, opening up this vent, and inside the vent I find this mysterious note. It's a riddle. It's a bit of a love story of two star-crossed lovers that found themselves here at the airport, and I'm curious about what it is, and by folding it a certain way, I've discovered that it points to one of the paintings on the wall, and I'm sure you've discovered that if you move the painting aside, you have this safe behind there. And the question is, what's in the safe? And now that I've got all these pieces, I want to find out what's inside. I want to open it up, and I want to see what's inside. And I'm not going to spoil it. You can go find your own safe and see what's inside. Because at the end of the day, what's inside the safe really isn't what's important, because it doesn't matter. What matters is the curiosity inside me drives me to go through each of these, ridiculous steps to find the safe in the first place. So, and you might think to yourself that this is an outlandish vision of a hotel experience. That, who would want to do this? And does this thing exist anywhere? And the thing is, it does. It does online. This is a common game type that's very popular in Japan and the United States called escape the room games. And they're these games, it's a whole genre of games that are built upon this idea of exploration through a room. You are a mysterious character, locked in a room, and you have to find your way out of it. And you do that by solving puzzles and taking pieces of information from one place to the next, and until you can, get out. Well, this happens online, right? But this isn't something that people do in the real world. Well, you'd be surprised. There's this theater piece in New York called Sleep No More, where they've taken an entire old hotel and turned it into a giant play. Every single floor are actors milling about, and you just get to wander around with a mask on, hidden. So you get to see this telling of, it's a recreation of Macbeth, and you get to walk around and explore what's on the desks and see what the story is of this missing person, and it ends up telling you a little bit about Macbeth, and there's foods you can try. You can eat the same food that the character's eating, and also you're driven and immersed in this world by curiosity. Another one is the Jejun Institute. This is in San Francisco, and it takes that same idea of real-world spaces in this type of play and actually puts it out into the streets of San Francisco, where you're walking around solving puzzles underneath. It's very subversive. They've taken statues that mean historically one thing, and they put their own plaque on it. So you're able to see that this statue is actually not of the person you think it is of, but it's of a character in this world. Accomplice is another one. This is in New York City, but it's in London, it's in LA, and it's a game similar to the Nordic LARP, if you're familiar with that. And as a player, you show up and you solve these puzzles walking around, and you're not sure who's an actor and who's just an innocent bystander. And if you go up to an innocent bystander and say the secret word, you just confuse the hell out of them. So. Okay, well, the question is there's these two things. There's the hotel and there's the game, and you know, someone someday is going to connect those two in some type of experience. But the real question is why? Why is it important? Why would you want to do that? And that's what we're going to talk about today: is game design thinking or gamification. The idea of using games as a lens to look at the rest of the world and to try to motivate people and to try to explore that intersection of what games are. My name's Jim. I work at a place called Undercurrent, and I also make games at a little strange company called Awkward Hub, where we make these games in the awkward space between the real and the digital, like the ones you're playing today, and we'll be playing another one here in a minute. And I've worked for various companies to do these types of things. So why games matter? They're big. It's big business. This is 323 million monthly players sit down at their computer and play a Zynga game. It hasn't helped their stock very much, but many people are out there playing these things, creating their own little worlds that take a lot of effort. There's a lot of work that goes into these things. Over 20% of the time people spend on cell phones or computers are actually spent playing games. And that doesn't even take into account board games and all the physical games, watching sports that are all part of our cultures. 1 billion downloads of Angry Birds. I made this slide a couple months ago, and it was only at 500 million. So you can just see, this is still growing. I mean, how many people have played Angry Birds here? Yeah, say, how many people have been frustrated by Angry Birds here? Okay, good, same amount. So, it's obviously big business. It's a big thing. And the thing, what's strange is that everyone's a gamer now. It isn't just the 13-year-old boy alone in his basement playing with their Xbox that's considered a gamer. In fact, most people, I mean, who here actually considers themselves a gamer would say, yeah, so not that many, but how many of you actually play games, right? Almost everybody. It's just the idea that we would consider ourselves gamers is something that is hard to grasp, but we all are. But it raises the question, what actually is a game? If it's something, on a board game, it's a video game, it's this game on our phones we're playing now, it's this whole conference. What actually is a game? Well, a game is one of those things that everyone's got a different definition for, and it's commonly, in the States we have this way of describing it kind of like pornography, where it's, well, I know it when I see it. I know it's a game because when I play it, it feels like a game. And this is a definition I like. It's a game is an activity among two or more independent decision makers seeking to achieve their objectives in some sort of limiting context. So what's interesting about that is it's a merge between limiting contexts and objectives. And so what that is motivations and rules. And at the intersection of those, that's what a game is. So we've created additional rules that weren't there before, and now if they motivate you through them, that's what a game is. So let's talk first about motivations, then we'll talk about rules. So there's two types of motivations. There's extrinsic motivations and intrinsic. Extrinsic are those ones outside of us. This is where people, this is the motivation that's derived from an outside source. So this is someone pays you to come to work every day. This is the recognition of winning something, of an award. It's basically things that have actual monetary value. Or on the other side, the punishment. You're motivated by this external force, you're going to get spanked if you don't do this thing. Intrinsic, on the other end, those are the motivations that come from inside of us. Those are the motivations, like challenge, that I want to do something a little bit faster than I did before. I want to run the mile in a little bit faster. I want to cut my time down. The curiosity, I want to study something I've never studied before, not because I'm going to get a grade or anything like that, just because I'm interested in it. And then control is I want to control like a character in a game. I want to control some aspect of my life, and there's no reward for it, but it's just something I want to do innately. And so these two types of motivations are very common in our everyday lives. And intrinsic ones are the ones that were so easy to jump to. Oh, we're gonna provide an incentive for you to do this thing by putting up money for it, because it's much more complicated to do the intrinsic ones. Here, I lost my intrinsic motivation. Okay, it's on that one over there. So intrinsic motivation, that's what gamification is all about, is finding ways to set up a system that encourages people to be motivated by the things inside of them. All right, so let's talk about how you set up those types of systems. We do it through rules, okay? And rules can be fun, rules can not be fun, but we're going to talk about the fun ones today. So a game designer's job, my job, and the jobs of everyone can be a game designer, is to take the rules around you and to maximize the enjoyment and fun out of them. We classically talk about games as having game mechanics, but that's really just a fancy pants name for rules. So to give you an idea of what rules look like, you would see someone, this child right here is just running, right? They're unstructured play, there's nothing going on more interesting besides the internal enjoyment of just running. But if we put on a layer of tag, or all of a sudden it becomes much more interesting as what the child's actually doing. The child now has objectives. The child now has goals, and is playing. It's turned into an actual system. So this is the system of tag. Are people familiar with tag? I think this is an international sport. I think this isn't in the Olympics, but I feel like it crosses boundaries here. You have one player that's it, and they're going after all the other players that are not it. And you become it by being tagged, right? So this person tags this other person that's not it, and now they're it. And now they're running around tagging other people. So the objectives are clear. They're running out trying to tag non-it people. Now, as a game designer, you look at a game like this, and you're like, okay, that all makes sense, but it's the job of the game designer to make sure it's balanced. And one of the problems right here with the system is that if I just tag you, I'm right here to be tagged back instantly. So the whole game could just be us like touching each other back and forth, and that's not a very fun game. So as a game designer, we've added the new rule in of no tag backs. All right, so you can't tag the person who just tagged you back. So it gives them time to get away, and that right there has become a better game. So when we look at the real world, there's already rules everywhere, right? And the problem is most of the time we haven't thought about them. And like all design, if you're not thinking about it and you're not purposely designing it in a specific way, most likely it's bad. It's bad design. And this is a grocery store here. You can, the rules of the grocery store are you've got, maybe an express checkout line, only 10 items in that one line. There's, the conveyor belt works at a certain speed, a certain number of people in line, and these are all rules in there. And as anyone knows that's been to the grocery store, it can be quite frustrating because the rules aren't designed for maximum enjoyment. So that's what we're gonna try a little experiment here about taking the same the same skill of networking and trying to play it as a game and try to subvert the rules that we already have as far as exchanging business cards, but exchanging them in a way that can be a little more game-like. So we're going to play this game, rock, paper, business cards. So I believe everyone's had some of these business cards here made up. You're either the doubter, the doer, or the dreamer. Now, if you pull those out, we'll play a little quick game, just briefly. So the game works like this. The goal of it is to get the most cards, okay, at the end of the amount of time. We'll play for like 5 minutes. The challenge is you're going to introduce yourself to someone that you haven't met already through the other game. There are games within games today. And you duel. So you pick one of your cards out, both of you do, and you put it face down, and after the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, you flip it over, and you both compare cards and you determine who's won. So they say on them which card beats which other card, and if you're the winner, So let's see, raise your hand if you completely lost all your cards. Okay. All right, I'm sorry. All right, how about people that had 3? Kept, like, just, they basically maintained their starting position. Okay, a couple. All right, 4. All right. 5 or more. Raise your hand if you have 5 or more. Okay, lower them. 6. If you have less than 6. 7. 7 and above. 8 and above. 9 and above. 10 and above. Anyone have more than 10? Sir, how many do you have? 11? 11? Anyone more than 11?
11, but I gave one away, so
Oh, very charitable of you, very charitable. All right, anyone more than 12? All right, congratulations. Oh, yes, how many? 14. All right, is 14 our max number here? Congratulations. Networking queen. So let's just talk briefly about what happened there. So there were 3 mechanics that we were using. Remember, 3 rules that corresponded to internal motivations. So we had surprise, challenge, and something in the game design what we call the magic circle. So surprise, the flipping over of the cards, that's a suspense. So that tapped into that curiosity. You want to see what the other person had. At the same time, you had a challenge. There's a little bit of, you know, maybe if we both did the same card, which one do I choose next? Are they just going to use the same one again? Do I need to pick out a new one? So there's that bit of that challenge, that competition of wanting to beat your neighbor. And then the last one is the magic circle. And the magic circle is a game design term that we use to talk about sort of the escape from the everyday. It didn't matter, right? You weren't really networking in a way that, like, you could, you know, not get the account or fail. You know, it was just purely for laughs, and allowed that lack of consequence and just the pure novelty of playing this game made it a lot easier to do. So think of it, the magic circle, as sort of stepping into the game world where things are okay, where you can act a little silly, you can be a little ridiculous because the consequences of the real world don't matter as much. So these are the 3 mechanics that we used. And this ended up lowering the inhibitions of having to network, of having to go up and introduce yourself to a stranger. So let's take a look at maybe some that you could apply these same type of mechanics to your jobs, your life, or if you want to just make a game for it. So what I have here is a brief description of motivations, and these are all intrinsic motivations, mechanics, and conventions. And when I say conventions, I like to think of these as kind of like film conventions. So you have just like within a film and within a movie, you could have a montage, you could have close-ups, and these are conventions of movies. But you don't need to have them to have a movie. You can make a game without these. You can use other examples of them. There's lots of different conventions that can be used for these. For example, competition is a motivation inside of you to compete with each other. And the mechanic is a challenge, so some type of challenge. And the convention, which the one that we were using today for the mobile game, is a leaderboard. So that is it's an easy one. You could think of a million other different challenges, but that's just one that is a go-to for many game designers. Curiosity, surprise. You can flip cards over. You can what's in the safe, that black box, or a die roll. What's the outcome of this chance? Desire to improve, that mastery. This is a common theme in games. You want to get better every time you play a game. If we continue to play this game, everyone would get a little bit better at it. There'd be a little more strategy involved. And a convention to show that you're getting better is progress bars and levels. And then there's a couple other here with assessment and immersion. And we all want to use these, to find a way to tap into those internal motivations. You use these mechanics, and they can be taken, the spectrum between an actual game and something that's not a game is very fluid. So, a full-fledged game may use all of these, or just some slight motivation might just use one of them to encourage people, encourage your employees, or to encourage yourself personally to exercise more, or eat less, or wake up earlier, those types of things. So These are just a reminder that you don't have to use these, but these are the conventions that are sort of go-to if you're looking for an easy way to try to tap into one of these internal motivations. So, you know, when you connect these dots someday, you know, design with care and use the best mechanics to go after the internal motivation that you want to, and I'm sure it will be great. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. I received some questions for you on games. Can they be distracting?
Yes, absolutely they can. If anyone has a teenage son or daughter, and you're talking to them, and all of a sudden they're not listening anymore, you can tell they're distracting. I think what happens most when you're trying to gamify something is it's a wrong use of one of these conventions that we talked about. So if you want to, you know, putting competition into everything does not necessarily make it good. You don't want, some things shouldn't be competitive, and so if all of a sudden you throw a competitive dynamic into a situation, it can actually be harmful to you know, the pre-existing sort of social ties, or can be distracting from the objectives of whatever you're trying to do. So it's very, that's why, you know, I say design with care, is you have to be very careful. These are easy to mess up tools, and as anybody who's tried to design a game before, or design any sort of software or something like that, it's very hard to get it right the first time.
Okay. Is there a difference between play and games?
Yes. So it's one of those constant struggles. Which one, within the circles, which one fits within the other one? Do you only play games, or can you only, or is play only a part of games? And you know, I like to think of it that there is unstructured play. As we looked at the child running, like a lot of times, and I think what happens is the unstructured play kind of dissipates as we get older. We need those rules. We can't just, you know, do something silly without having that. We have too many inhibitions, so we have to like lower them to have that fun.
Okay, and the last question is, tell me a little bit about your proposal.
Oh,
tell
okay.
us, please.
Okay, so I met my wife online through an online dating site, and so after we'd been dating for a couple of years, I thought it would be appropriate to ask her to marry me online as well. So I took some of our stories that we shared, photos, and screenshots from our conversation on the dating website, and had an illustrator come and just like the illustrators in the back, illustrate a long sort of infographic blog post kind of thing of our narrative together. And I had her go to the site. It was one of those URL shorteners. It was a bit.ly, and she went there, and the actual domain was juliewillyoumarry.me. It's the domain, and it's still up if you're curious. And she, of course, is reading through all this, you know, our story, and it ends with "Will you marry me?" But what she doesn't know is that I'm using the camera on the computer to record her reaction the whole time. Surprise, honey! And so after that, I posted the video, and right underneath it, and I did this so I could send it to our family and be like, hey, look at, we just got engaged. Little did I know that they were going to share it with their friends and family and their friends and family, and then a million people later have seen it. So that's the story.
Okay, thank you. James Babb.